what's up? It's been a while since I posted, but I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about a new pair of shoes that came in. That's not mine, actually it belongs to a friend, but I just want to keep this short because it really, again, it's not mine, so I haven't had the chance to try it on myself. I was really excited when these came in. I was asked to be a middleman in a trade between a friend of mine and someone whom he had not conducted business with before. So yeah, I mean, they were looking for, they're trying to figure out a way to make a trade without having to take too much risk into themselves. So I mean, yeah, I guess they trusted this face. To be honest though, if these were my size, I would have probably tried to scam both of them. Anyway, here they are. It's the CCP Fall Winter 2007 Disjointed boots. These are fucking amazing and super rare. The Disjointed boots came as part of the Disjointed collection. Again, this was in Fall Winter 2007-2008. The key characteristic of the Disjointed series was how could we make super tough leather into something that can be wearable. Prior to this, the studio had always focused on making clothing that was almost impossible to wear, like super restrictive, stiff as fuck. You could barely even raise your arms to say hi. The objective of CCP clothing was always to make the body, the wearer, aware of what he's putting onto his body, especially considering the amount of work, the amount of research that's been put into these pieces. CCP is nothing like, say, I thought through a designer who focuses very much on mobility, flexibility, and human anatomy. While CCP does study anatomy, it's always in the sense of like, how can we construct the garment to make the wearer fit the garment rather than to make the garment fit the wearer. So the Disjointed series was remarkable in the sense that they tried to flip this on its head and use leather that was incredibly hard. And they found a process, and that's called object tanning. So what they did is essentially they constructed the whole boot out of wet, raw hide in the first place. So imagine taking the hide of the animal, and before you tan the leather, which means to cure it, which would preserve the leather, what they did instead was to, well, first they removed all the hair of the hide. Then they would soak it in water to make it soft and malleable, because otherwise raw hides can be quite tough. So they soaked it, which would allow them to shape it onto the foot last and then stitch it. Once the full wet raw boot is assembled, then they would tan the entire boot whole. What this does to the leather is it makes it very rigid, very hard, almost like super hard. This is harder than any other CCP leather that I've seen. It makes the leather wrinkly like the grandfather's old ball sack. And it's got this interesting like puckering all along the seams. So what CCP described was that because of the object tanning process, the seams, which were stitched on when it was still in its wet hide stage, would then in the process of tanning sort of be absorbed, tightened, even make the seams even tighter, sealing the stitches. The hides used in this boot were two types. I assume that the hard parts here, I assume that these are probably horse hide, while the joints are constructed of softer, thinner leather. I'm assuming these are probably kangaroo. They usually are. When this is done as a whole, so you've got like two leathers of varying thickness, the solution that they use for the tanning process, it's so precise. It's enough to make the thinner kangaroo leather parts softer and more pliable, able to move around freely, but not enough to soften the harder parts, the parts that give the boot structure. So this way, the wearer is able to move freely around the ankle joints as well as where the toes flex. So the Disjointed collection it's one of my favorites. I do think that object tanning is one of the studio's greatest achievements. It's an amazing process, super hard to replicate, which explains why they never tried to replicate that until today. Probably also due to the fact that it's not as comfortable as they would like you to think. Someone I know had actually owned these when they were launched at retail, and he said that they made his feet fucking bleed. So that's something to keep in mind. Leather is incredibly tough and unforgiving in the parts where it's not jointed. In terms of aging, clearly there have been a lot of miles put on these guys. The original owner or owners have put on some rubber soles here. There used to be a heel tab, you can see over here. But to be honest, they look like shoes that are about 13 years old. If you're a fan of looks like this, yeah, they're perfect. It's got that great wrinkly, warped look that a lot of CCP fans absolutely adore. In terms of sizing, I'm sure you can see it, but these are tagged a size 9. In CCP terms, that normally translates to about a size 44, but because of the object tanning process, it makes them a little bit smaller, tougher, tighter. They shrink basically during the tanning process. So I would say this probably fit like a true CCP 8, 8.5. In terms of availability, these guys are pretty rare. Recently I saw a pair on Grailed. They're going for a ridiculous price. The guy who bought this pair got it off Yahoo Japan, I think. He said he paid something like $2,000 for them. My friend, he swapped a pair of pretty cool looking CCP hikers, the hiking boots. So on the interior, see what the object tanning does to the inside. It's pretty interestingly, it's kind of faint, but you can see perforations of an 09 here, and for here what looks like a 20. So on the newer CCP footwear, you would have a little label on the inside of the shoe signifying its batch number. Given that there are 2 numbers here, I'm not well versed enough to know what they stand for. So if any of you know, please let me know in the comments. And you can see how thick it is. And this super gnarly, almost like membrane-like, alien-esque kind of texture on the inside. Whereas on the jointed areas over here, it's still lined, so it's 2 layers in the jointed areas, but clearly much thinner. Inside, kind of dark here, but there's no insole, which I believe was pretty normal for CCP shoes of that era. So imagine the toughness and hardness of the leather, no insole at the bottom to protect your feet. But women wear high heels and suffer from. I guess it's time we did the same. Yeah, so let me know what you think about these. Have you tried them before? Do you have them? Do you want them? What do you think about these? Would you even wear them? Do they really remind you of your grandfather's ball sack? Let me know in the comments.